3 cities, 3 nights, 3 collisions of secrets none ever saw. Vienna, 1963, an exchange under flickering lamps. Tel Aviv, 1953, a coder's last breath. Damascus, 1973, radar arrays going dark. 2 agencies danced a silent war across borders. Now unfolds a conflict that reshaped the world. A pre-dawn hush settled over Ha'arbana Street in Tel Aviv on May 14, 1953, when a single shortwave transmission shattered the silence. Inside a modest third-floor apartment, Mossad agent Miriam Katz crouched beside a walnut bookcase where she discovered a concealed Soviet radio transmitter, its dials flickering with unauthorized signals. She adjusted the receiver's frequency, and the static resolved into a coded message listing Soviet advisors stationed in Damascus and Cairo. Katz tapped a concealed lamp twice, the agreed signal to David Levi, waiting in a black Volkswagen Beetle beneath a lone street lamp. Levy's eyes tracked each figure emerging from the building, ready to confront danger. When Katz slipped out with a tiny microfilm canister clutched against her coat, Levi opened the back door without a sound. They navigated deserted corridors, every footstep echoing like a thunderclap in the locked building. In the car's cramped cockpit, Miriam removed the microfilm and handed it to Levi, whose fingers trembled as he slid it into a pocket. Headlights from 2 unmarked sedans glowed at the block's far end, Soviet tail cars closing in fast. Levy turned the Beetle's engine off and eased into the shadows of an adjacent alley. He radioed Katz's handler at Mossad headquarters that the package was secure. Morning light seeped over the horizon just as 2 figures in dark overcoats exited a nearby doorway, their faces hidden under brimmed hats. They circled the Beetle, scanning the empty street, unaware that the night's operation had already slipped through their grasp. By 4 a.m., Tel Aviv looked unaltered. The evidence vanished into dawn's calm. Word of the breach reached the offices of Prime Minister Moshe Sharett within hours. Security chiefs under Isser Harel convened in a wood-paneled war room, studying Katz's intercepted transmission. They mapped Soviet influence from Damascus to Cairo and realized Israel needed a dedicated counterintelligence division. In June 1953, Mossad's counterintelligence division stood up with Harel at its helm, tasked with hunting Soviet operatives and protecting the nation's fragile security. That division's creation marked a turning point. Israel no longer reacted to shadows, it chased them. Every mission that followed, from European defector extractions to Middle Eastern infiltration, bore the imprint of that silent night. The techniques refined in Tel Aviv's labyrinthine alleys became Mossad trademark. Agents learned that a single whisper of information could reshape entire battlefields. The covert war against the KGB had begun, and neither side would relent. The sparks ignited on Ha'arbana Street lit a flame that would burn through decades of espionage. The Cold War chessboard stretched across Europe by the early 1960s, where Vienna's coffee houses harbored more secrets than diplomats. August 22, 1963 began with light rain spattering the cobblestones of Kärntner Ring, where Mossad operative Avraham Ben Cohen waited outside Café Pruckel at precisely 11:47 p.m. Under his gray overcoat, Cohen carried microfilm containing Soviet missile trajectories from Cuba, obtained through a defector in Prague. 2 blocks away, KGB surveillance operatives Viktor Orlov and Dmitry Kozlov sat in a black Wartburg sedan, watching through fogged windows as pedestrians moved beneath flickering street lamps. Cohen checked his watch again, 11:52 p.m. His contact, a Bulgarian intelligence officer named Georgy Petkov, should have emerged from the cafe by now. Instead, Cohen noticed the Wartburg's headlights flash twice, the abort signal he had dreaded. Petkov stumbled from the cafe's rear entrance, blood trickling from his left temple, and collapsed against a phone booth. The KGB had discovered their operation. Cohen sprinted toward the Ringstrasse tram stop, clutching the microfilm against his ribs while Orlov and Kozlov pursued on foot through Vienna's winding alleys. At 11:58 p.m., Cohen reached the Israeli safe house on Fleischmark Street, where handler Sarah Meyer waited with an encrypted radio transmitter. The microfilm revealed Soviet SS-4 missile specifications and deployment schedules for Syria and Egypt, intelligence that would prove decisive in future conflicts. Within hours, the data reached Tel Aviv, where analysts decoded launch sequences and radar frequencies. Cohen's narrow escape demonstrated how precarious Mossad operations had become in Soviet-monitored territories. The KGB retaliated 3 months later in Paris. February 14, 1968, brought a bitter winter to Montparnasse, where KGB station chief Viktor Petrov had grown disillusioned with Moscow's Middle Eastern policies. Through intermediaries in the French Communist Party, Petrov signaled his willingness to defect. Mossad operative Rachel Goldman, posing as a cultural attaché, arranged a meeting at a safe house on Rue de la Gaîté. Goldman arrived at 8:15 p.m., carrying forged Swiss passports and extraction routes through Geneva. Petrov revealed the locations of KGB informant networks in Beirut, Tripoli, and Damascus, along with code names of Soviet advisors training Palestinian militants. He handed Goldman a leather briefcase containing microfilm of weapons shipment schedules and training manuals. The intelligence was invaluable. Soviet arms were flowing to Arab states faster than Israeli analysts had estimated. Goldman radioed her handler that the extraction was proceeding as planned. They scheduled departure for Geneva at 4:30 a.m. Petrov never reached the train station. At 2:47 a.m., neighbors reported shouting from his apartment on Boulevard du Montparnasse. When police arrived, they found no body, no evidence, only an overturned chair and a shattered vodka glass. The KGB had silenced their traitor before he could reveal more secrets. Goldman waited at Gare de Lyon until dawn, clutching the briefcase that had cost Petrov his life. The message was unmistakable. Soviet intelligence would eliminate defectors rather than allow Mossad to exploit them. European capitals became laboratories for espionage tradecraft throughout the 1960s. Dead drops appeared in West Berlin's Tiergarten, where Mossad agents concealed microfilm inside hollowed-out park benches. Messages traveled via Deutsche Bundespost in postcards containing microdots smaller than pinheads. Front companies proliferated in Paris and London under Mossad's Bureau 131, which operated import businesses, art galleries, and travel agencies as covers for intelligence gathering. The KGB matched every innovation with countermeasures. Soviet operatives monitored postal routes, photographed visitors to Israeli-linked businesses, and recruited clerks within Western banks where Mossad maintained accounts. Both agencies employed identical techniques: surveillance, recruitment, infiltration, and disinformation. The contest became a mirror war where each side studied the other's methods and adapted accordingly. Technology began shifting the balance by 1969. Mossad acquired miniaturized recording devices and burst transmission radios that could send encrypted messages in milliseconds. Israeli technical officers reverse-engineered Soviet cryptographic equipment captured during the Six-Day War, allowing them to intercept KGB communications across Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, Soviet signal intelligence stations in Prague and Budapest monitored Israeli diplomatic channels, seeking patterns in Mossad agent movements. The European theater taught both agencies hard lessons about operational security. Trust became a luxury neither could afford. Double agents flourished in the gray zones between ideologies, selling information to whichever side offered better protection or payment. By 1970, veteran operatives assumed every contact was compromised, every safe house monitored, every communication intercepted. Paranoia replaced confidence as the dominant operational mindset. Vienna remained the epicenter of this shadowy conflict, where East met West beneath a veneer of neutrality. The city's grand hotels hosted diplomats by day and spies by night. Café Central witnessed more clandestine meetings than peace negotiations. Even Mozart's birthplace became a venue for intelligence exchanges, where tourists provided cover for operatives passing classified documents. The human cost mounted steadily. Agents disappeared without explanation. Defectors vanished before reaching safety. Families were torn apart when operatives failed to return from missions. Both Mossad and the KGB maintained memorial walls in their headquarters, honoring those lost in service. These walls grew longer each year, testament to a war fought in silence but paid for in blood.